Hello guys, you're welcome back to my channel. This is Marian, your girl, and I'm super excited to have you back on my channel. If you're new here, you're welcome. If you're just passing by, I really do appreciate you stopping by. And if you're my subscriber, thank you for always coming back to watch. In my last week's video, I had mentioned why African marriages abroad are breaking up. Now, I gave my analysis concerning this and why I think it's happening that much. Then, in the comment section, I had a lot of people commenting, mostly guys, who, gave their opinions and which I really did appreciate. But then there was this comment that got to me, and I felt like if I didn't reply him, then he may not get the full picture of what he's talking about. I'd like for you to listen to what he wrote because I'm going to read it out and my response to him. So he said, I knew this was going to be mentioned even before I watched the video. It's so overused, especially in the West. It's funny to me that women who divorce for reasons like this or reasons like this do so just to look for richer men, yet they'll still be doing the chores, cooking, and etc. They assume the grass is greener. It might be though. Honestly, if you're doing so to remain single for the remainder of your life, then that's commendable, but that's usually not the case. I have seen African women who were housewives and still unhappy in their marriage because the husbands who came home from work didn't do a chore. The fellow below made a good point about Indian women. I work in IT with Indian women and they do things you mentioned above, work in IT and motherly duties. But how come the divorce rates are low in their community in the West? I mean, extremely low. I don't know the reason, but in my opinion, I think the reason is because Indian women aren't swayed by Western ideals easily than African women. Their beliefs and culture are very strong. An African woman will come to the state for a few years and act like Black Americans. Here in Georgia, we have a big Nigerian community. I realized the marriages that worked in the Nigerian community were the ones whose husbands were in IT, making good money, or working in finance. Their women would still work, but cook and clean, no complaint. But it's the ones who live paycheck to paycheck that are the ones who didn't last. And of course, it's the woman initiating the divorce. This is where your statement in the video is spot on. African women want a good life. They won't be stuck in a marriage with a broke man. To end this is why I'm hearing African men talking about having your family in Africa and work abroad. I have been hearing this a lot lately. I don't believe in this because so many things can go wrong, but been hearing this a lot in the UK. Now, this is me reading someone else's comment on my last week's video. Now, there is a lot that I'd like to share concerning this comment. Thank you so much for sharing this, my brother. But I need to bring your attention to some certain things when you talk about African women. I think I will take them point by point. First, you mentioned Indian women staying in their marriages, working and doing all the house chores. My brother, do you live with Indian women to know if they complain or if their husbands help them? You do not know this for sure. That is one thing that we do not know for sure, you and I. Secondly, when you talk about food, I will take myself for example, in Nigerian. When you talk about a Nigerian woman cooking for you, you cannot compare her to an Indian woman cooking. The Indians will make paratha. They will make a soup, just something small where they dip in their paratha, and they will make tea, and lunch or breakfast is served. Maybe they will do chicken biryani. It's just cook your rice, add some spices, cook up the chicken, they grill, and maybe they just boil and add it to it. I'm trying to make a point, just hold on. Now, talk of a Nigerian woman, a typical Nigerian dish. Take myself for example. Today is my off day. Yesterday I went to work, I came back, and today is my off day. And so I decided, my husband wanted jollof rice, but I decided I had to make stew. So I had to make stew and jollof rice because jollof rice doesn't last, right? Good. So you need stew to take us through the week. Now, typical time that a Nigerian woman will use in making one meal, an Indian woman will use for 1 week to do all her cookings. And I'm not joking. You will spend almost 3 hours to prepare just a pot of stew, a pot of Nigerian stew. And if you do not believe me, I'm going to set up a live when I am going to make a stew and I will put it. But to be honest with you, if I had to put the part of cutting up the meat, washing it, spicing it, boiling it, frying it, keeping it aside, getting the tomato, slicing it, blending it, if I had to add all those parts, I'm sure it would take longer time. And then talk about the boiling of the tomato. That is, if you decide to boil it. And even if you decide not to boil the tomato, that you want to do a one-way fry, of course, the tomato is wet. It will take a lot of time to dry up, depending on the quantity of food you're cooking. Now, for someone who lives abroad, who's working, I would imagine that she would want to make a pot of stew that would take them throughout the week. And that pot of stew would definitely be a large pot. So it would take some time. It took me more than 3 hours today to make a pot of stew and some jollof rice like my husband wanted. And I still had to do the cleaning of the house. I still had to do all the chores. On the other hand, I had the baby jumping up and down. Indian women don't cook that way. That is another thing that you should put in mind. Thirdly, you mentioned that most Nigerian women who actually go to divorce for reasons like this actually do so just to get married to richer men. Are you sure of what you're talking about? That they actually divorce their husbands just to marry richer men and still continue to do the house chores which they are complaining about? I don't think so. A woman will not divorce a man she loves just to be with another man who has money. Before a woman divorces any man, there must have been love lost. Love is lost already. There is no more love in it. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, the things you counted, reasonable, but not true. It's not true that a woman will divorce her husband while she's complaining of someone to help her with the chores and get married to another rich man. For Christ's sake, she's complaining that she's working and doing all the house chores. And something I noticed with your reply was the fact that you didn't even say anything concerning helping your wife. You were just talking about how other women do it, how Indian women do it, how even when they divorce, they marry someone else, they still do it. What about you say something like, you can help your wife? What about you say something like that? I've heard of stories how most Nigerian men in the West, they go marry Nigerian women. Every man wants his wife to be a nurse because nursing gives good money. They therefore train her in nursing and expect her to work all her life nursing. Job after job, taking extra hours, all in the name of having a plan or a target back home. And what do the Nigerian men do in return? Lay back, lay low, and enjoy themselves, waiting for this woman to go and stress herself. And maybe, just maybe, at the end of the day, although the lady who talked about this talked about the husband's just going to get a car and say they're actually driving Uber. Uber becomes his next business, his next job. because he can do and undo. He can decide to stop work at any time and do whatever. Just think about this. Think about that. What if these women are actually in need of your help? What if these particular women that you are trying to talk about, you are castigating, not even thinking of if they actually do need your help? Just what if they actually need your help as their husbands? I would tell my husband sometimes, honey, please, it's my off day tomorrow. Could you help me do this, and that so that it's easier for me tomorrow? Could you help me buy this from the supermarket? Could you help me buy some chicken, some tomatoes, some this, some that? Sometimes he will help me slice up the things that I will use when I come back home so that it's easier for me. Sometimes he will parboil the beans so that when I come back, I can finish the cooking. Now it takes understanding. It takes understanding for a family to work. And if it will not work out, and this woman continually feels the way she's feeling, there is something you do not understand. People fall out of love for silly reasons. It may be silly to you, but it's not silly to her. People fall out of love for very, very tiny reasons. It may be tiny and silly to you, but it's important to her. Imagine a woman who's asking for help from her husband, and her husband continually rejects and leaves her to continue to do the things that she does, all in the name of being an African wife. And you are talking about them joining the Western women. What do the Western women do that is bad? For one thing that I know, their husbands help them. Their husbands help them. Honestly. So you cannot just say that this is happening. I will be bringing someone probably next week who's going to talk about this so well, because right now she's in the West. And she would have seen firsthand, maybe other women, and she would explain it better. And I hope to bring her here on my channel next week. I talked to her about it, and she blew my mind when she told me about the main bone of contention. Now, let me remind you that some of these African marriages, honestly, some of them, they're already shaken. They already have a shaky background. And because they are in Africa, they are not able to do what they are supposed to do. Now, coming to the West, that is more receptive to women, what do you expect? If you don't do what you're supposed to do in a place that she knows that she can get what she wants, then I'm sorry, that's exactly what you get, a divorce. So now let's talk about why is this prevalent, or why is this happening only to Nigerian women? When you Nigerian men marry women from the West, you start to do house chores, right? Don't you? Do you tell them that it is a woman's job? No. By default, because you know it is their way of life, you start to do it. But when it comes to the Nigerian woman, you leave her to do it all. Bros, jail. Jail. The truth must be told. When you see truth, you talk them. And this is how I'm saying it today. Be coming back to you next week with some other topic affecting both women and men. Till then, do have a happy day. Do have a blessed day. Stay happy, stay blessed, and bye.